What's going on, guys? It's your boy Juju Green, aka Straw Hat Goofy. Can I be your movie guy? Because today we're going to be talking about one of the most anticipated movies of the year, I think, for everybody involved. Ryan Coogler's Sinners, starring Michael B. Jordan. And I'm just gonna keep it a buck. I think I should just do a spoiler review because I was thinking about doing a spoiler free than jumping into a spoiler review, but I got a lot of things to edit. I got my podcast, I got junkets, I got my TikTok content, as well as like trying to break into this YouTube thing. I'm like, contrary to popular belief, I can be pretty lazy with this type of stuff. So I figured I've seen this movie 3 times. I saw it for the first time over a month ago. I've been dying to kind of like just give you guys everything. So I'm gonna just empty the clip on all my thoughts when it comes to this movie. So I'll give it like a little mini review and then we'll jump into the spoilers. But if you haven't yet, make sure you like this video. If you like what I do, make sure you subscribe and also hit the bell to get notified for my other videos. It will definitely help the channel, help me with the algorithm, and yeah, it will inspire me to just create more YouTube videos for you guys. All right, so Sinners is a movie directed by Ryan Coogler, starring Michael B. Jordan. It's the 5th collaboration between those two, but it's also the 5th collaboration between Ryan Coogler and composer Ludwig Göransson, who just won an Oscar for Oppenheimer. And starting off with that, I want to say that this is a very musically driven film. That's something that a lot of people are going to be more surprised at when they go into it, because it's definitely a big homage and love letter to blues music, and we'll get into that in more of the spoiler section. But Sinners is a story of Smoke and Stack, both played by Michael B. Jordan, twins who come back home to their hometown of Mississippi after doing some gangstering in Chicago, and they are trying to make a juke joint for their community. Everything goes great until it doesn't, when vampires descend on the juke joint, and then things just kind of go off the rails from there. Ryan Coogler, by this time, if you haven't figured it out, is a very high quality filmmaker, and he has a super great love for film, and it shows because he is doing something no other directors doing with this, and that's combining the Panavision with the 70mm IMAX filming techniques. So watching this movie on a biggest screen possible, on a true IMAX screen, was one of the most transcendent experience I could ever have. I watched it all 3 times on this, and I don't think I could go back to watching it in any other format. These landscapes look beautiful, the giant like wide screens look amazing, and hearing the sound of those musical elements blew me the hell away. Now, this isn't a musical per se, but again, that is one of the biggest parts of the movie that we'll talk to once we get to the spoiler category. This is a stacked cast with Delroy Lindo, Haley Steinfeld, Miles Caton, and Wunmi Musaku. This movie has a lot of people on top of this, and everybody's bringing their A game. There's a lot of weight behind a lot of their backstories without giving us a lot of exposition. And when the events of the film happen, you do kind of feel bad for the community that is built and then ripped apart. A lot of people will see this movie just thinking like, oh, 2 Michael B. Jordans, he's fine as hell, plus vampires. I'm on board with that. In the Jim Crow South, great setting. Like, all those things are enough to get people into the theater, but I feel like there's so much to dissect and so much to just kind of analyze about this film that is under the surface. This is a very, very smart film with a lot of great things working for it, with themes of community, heritage, religion, and then the classic good versus evil, but where these characters feel that they stand when it comes to these concepts within this community, especially during the Jim Crow South, when segregation and prejudice is running rampant all through the place, and what happens when you introduce the mythos and the conventions of vampire films into that. This, I'm just gonna say, it's a cinematic masterpiece. I think this is not only a vampire classic, I think this is a classic film that we're watching right now, and I think this is something that everybody should go see. I do have some criticisms, like I do feel like Ryan, shout out to Ryan Coogler. I've done a lot of work with him over the last couple weeks, like kind of promoting this movie and kind of like shooting behind the scenes, but he told me to be honest where honesty is due. But there's something going on with his third acts ever since like Black Panther 1, the Black Panther Wakanda Forever, and then this third act here feels a little bit rushed. There's like, jumping into the spoilers, why not? Let's do it right now. Is when the vampires are descending on the final fight of the last characters, there's like maybe only 5 characters left, but the vampires kill like at least 9 people. Like, it felt like they killed way more people than there were in there. Like, somebody was getting eaten off to the side. I was thinking, who the hell is that? And I get why that was a thing, because there's 5 characters left and there's like what, 28, 30 vampires, and obviously they're gonna like kill those people very, very easily, and you have to make sure there's like, the humans are putting up more of a fight. But I was just really sitting there like, who's that guy? Who's getting eaten right here? And I don't know if he didn't think we weren't gonna notice. I noticed it the first time, and then I noticed it the second time, and I was just kind of like, oh, okay. And so, the movie starts wiping people off the board in a very like rapid fashion. And that was just something I was kind of like, okay, this is happening like a little bit too fast. But up until that point, the movie's damn near perfect. Like, I saw it 3 times. I feel like I should be able to say whether it's perfect or not. I really hesitate saying that off of the first time, but this has the makings of being something that could, in a couple years, because I usually wait a couple years between viewing a movie to say that this movie is one of my favorite movies ever. I really do see myself saying that at some point. So, that's just kind of where I'm at. All right, so Sinners like starts off with the character of Sammy, played by Miles Caton, who's somebody with a little boy body, but with a grown man voice. He was a music artist before this movie, and like basically this is a showcase for his musical talents. And man, does he show that off. He's essentially the son of a preacher, and so they give him the nickname Preacher Boy. But what he really wants to do is play the blues. That's his passion. He plays his guitar. His father lets him do that, but his father, being a religious man, a God-fearing man, is definitely subscribed to the idea that blues is the devil's music, which if you know your history, you know that way back in the day, a lot of people considered the blues player someone who like conjured the devil and played the devil's guitar and things of that sort. So already some interesting elements happening here with like, giving reverence to blues while also kind of like mixing it in with like religion and like what that means for people who wants to sing for the Lord versus like people who play blues for the devil. There's already some things happening here, and we already get the sense that Sammy is like, he loves his father, he appreciates everything that his father is doing, but he loves blues, and his father knows that he loves blues, and he gives him the free will to do that, but he tells him straight up, you keep dancing with the devil, one day you're going to bring that thing home with you. And I find that very interesting when we talk about the idea of freedom, right? Like this big thing in Christianity where it says like God has given us free will. And that's exactly what Sammy's father is doing him here. He says, you can do what you want. You can dance with the devil all you want. That is your choice. However, it's much better over here where we're fearing God over here. So I really like dug this kind of like concept of Sammy defying his father to literally go play with the devil. And that kind of manifests itself in his 2 cousins, Smoke and Stack, played by Michael B. Jordan. And these are cousins who definitely love their little cousin. They definitely like look out for him. They're kind of like the big brother's other father figures to them. When in reality, they're the ones who also killed their father, the brother of of Sammy's dad. So there's a lot of like really interesting things at work here. It's almost like Sammy was presented a choice between staying with his father, the holy side, and then going with the gangsters, the ones who killed their father, to play the devil's music over here. So Sammy's already clearly making a choice of where he stands in this world. And I also found it very interesting that Smoke and Stack, they are questioning Sammy on whether or not his father is putting their hands on him, right? Because everyone knows that Sammy, Smoke and Stack's father was an evil man. And so the first thing that we hear in their interactions is your father putting their hands on you? And so you could tell there's already kind of like a protective element over Sammy between the cousins there. And so we learn very quickly that Smoke and Stack came from Chicago. Apparently they used to work for Al Capone, and then they robbed both sides of a gang war. They brought that money back, and we're introduced to them buying this old mill to turn into a juke joint. And as they're doing that, we see them split up, and this is a great way for us to see the rest of the world that this movie built. But the world is pretty small because it's a community, and this is where we get introduced to the other characters in this community. Delroy Lindo's Delta Slim, he was an old man blues player who is a sinner himself, made a lot of atrocities, did a lot of like sinning things like robbery and things of that sort, and he narrowly escapes. A lot of people in his camp did not so much, and so he's very much resigned to a life of just drinking and playing blues. He knows he has not a lot of time left on this earth, and he just wants to live out the rest of his days doing what he loves because he knows what he's done. And I really found that to be a really great character trait for him, someone who knows that he's like on the way out and knows what he's done, but he's very resigned in that. And in a lot of ways, and we'll talk about this a little bit more, he is Smoke and Stack like in the future, right? He is someone who sought freedom through music and never really got it, right? He knows that he's kind of like stuck on this earth the way he is. And Smoke and Stack are 2 people who are looking for some semblance of freedom. They were in the gang life, they were in the army, 2 things that you would consider things that will lock you down. And they're both kind of like, we want something for us now. We want to make something for where we came from, which is why they're there at the juke joint. So having Stack try to convince Delroy's Delta to like join them in this pursuit of freedom, found that very, very interesting. And then this is where we also get introduced to Haley Steinfeld's Mary, who was also with Stack, but Stack kind of like left her alone, and she's kind of like coming back and saying like, hey, like, me and you still rocking together or what? So we'll talk more about like the Smoke and Stack love interest, because we also see that Smoke has a love interest played by Wunmi Musaku named Annie. And Annie is almost like the shaman of the movie. She's tapped into the supernatural. She knows about Haint. She knows about vampires. She does rituals. She did rituals to keep Smoke safe while he was out on his travels, whether in the army or doing gangster work. And she's more of the kind of like loving, more supportive, but still very like stern. Like she kind of puts Smoke in his place, and Smoke kind of like melts at the sight of her, because Smoke is a very like hardened man. And in comparison to Mary, who is the love interest for Stack, the twin brother, like she's more of a firecracker. She don't give a damn. Like there's at one point she gives Stack the business, and Sammy says, damn, like maybe she ain't white. Like, you know what I'm saying? She's very much on that. Like she rocks with the black people. And there's reasons for that, which we'll get into like later on in the film. But it's really cool to kind of like see how both of the love interests of two Michael B. Jordan characters kind of like reflect both of those characters. Stack is a lot of the firecracker who Smoke says can't watch his own back. Mary ends up not watching her own back later in the movie. And then you have Annie, who's more of the kind of like supportive, knows what's up, very tapped in, just like Smoke is, and like they're like kind of good for each other. So I love how both of their love interests kind of reflect who they are and what they need as characters. We also get to meet the Chows, Bo and Grace Chow, who are essentially the Asian community that are like the go-between of the black and white community. So Smoke heads into that town saying like, yo, I need a sign, I need some supplies for this party that we're throwing tonight, and you guys are the ones to help us do it. And I love the relationship that's established between these characters, because it shows that this is an Asian community that recognize that they're also people of color, but they're the go-between who understand that the black community can't get what they need. And so they're the ones to like kind of stand there and say, we got you for whatever you need. You know, at one point, like Smoke shoots two guys, and the guys go, "Oh, why'd you shoot us? We don't have no money." And so he goes in there and says, like, "Hey, yo, you need to like patch these people up, because we know they don't have insurance." And they say, "Yeah, we can handle that." And they take care of it. So I love how this community is being set up throughout the movie, and that's like the first half before everything goes into chaos. And what I really loved was that there was this scene where you see the community at the highest peak of happiness, right? Well, the second highest peak of happiness, because we'll get into that. But at the second highest peak of happiness, right before everything goes to shit, right before the sun goes down. And it's the score there is beautiful. The moment, like seeing like Sammy play his guitar and Stack like singing along with him, and then you see the Chows like getting into the car. It's honestly something like beautiful, right? Like it's like the harbinger. It's like the calm before the storm, right? Then we get introduced to Remick, the villain of the movie, the vampire of the movie. And Remick on the surface is your typical kind of like white villain coming in to mess up the black people's fun, right? He shows up, turns two white people who he finds out are like the Ku Klux Klan. And initially, some people would think that maybe he's a Ku Klux Klan member creating like a super clan with turning them into vampires, but he's a lot more than that. Now, that's all I'll say about his introduction. As we get into like the juke joint itself, we also get introduced to the character Perline, who is the love interest for Sammy. And she, in a way, represents everything that Sammy was warned against when it came to his father, right? His father said, you're going to play music for drunkards who want to sweat and dance all over each other, basically playing the devil's music. And Perline is someone who sings blues music while also being someone who's married, but still coming after Sammy hard. Like she's a hardcore seductress. You saw the way she walked when she said you go bite off more than you could chew, and you saw the way she showed the yams after talking about biting off more than you could chew. This woman is a seductress, okay? And Sammy ain't innocent in this either. He also was just kind of like, "Oh, you married?" She said, "Yeah, I'm married happily." Like he's fully trying to bite what he trying to chew. You know what I'm saying? So he is full tilting into what his daddy told him not to do, going for a woman who's married, going for one who plays the blues, and Perline is that representation of that, right? So as the party's in full swing, we get a lot of interactions between a lot of different characters. Mary is meeting Sammy for the first time. Mary's coming at Stack. Smoke and Annie are talking about like what ways they could do to make more money, like inviting the community in to have a night of fun, even though they don't have the money for it. There's a lot of things happening. in this film. We also get introduced to Cornbread. I forgot about Cornbread, played by Omar Miller, who was in 8 Mile way back in the day. If you saw my interview here on this channel, it was pretty great. But he's, kind of guarding the door, and, we're in the full swing of these things. But I just really want to get to the scene. Listen. So there's a scene where Sammy is asked to play at the juke joint, and this is where Miles Caton shines. So he starts playing his blues tune. Everybody's kind of getting into it, and there's this line in the movie that I'm paraphrasing that says, sometimes music is so powerful it can pierce the veil between the living and the dead, and can kind of connect us from the past, present, and the future. And so while Sammy is playing, we hear his guitar, and then out of nowhere, we see a full-on electric guitar of somebody from it looks like the 80s playing alongside of him. And this kicks off a amazing, breathtaking, mouth-dropping one take as we move across this juke joint. And throughout the juke joint, we see a DJ, we see girls twerking, we see Bay Area like dudes from like 2026 like dancing, we see Bloods, we see Crips, we see African tribes doing their dance, all together. At one point, we even see Chinese dancers, which look like it came from like the 17th century or something like that. We see all of these people dancing, singing all throughout time in one space through one take. It reminded me of Ryan Coogler's scene that made me fall in love with him, which was in Creed, the one take fight scene that happened in like 2 rounds or something like that. But it was taken to a whole nother level. Not only does it look amazing on screen, not only does it sound amazing because the score blends so many different genres together through Miles Caton's beautiful voice and beautiful guitar skills and Ludwig Göransson's beautiful guitar skills. There's a moment where the place burns down and we're looking from the outside in, and we literally just see this collection of people, this community kind of like reveling, celebrating, singing together. And that is what happens when a culture gets together. That is what happens when it comes to music. That is what happens during Jim Crow. That is what happened during slavery, is that we come together to kind of like pay respects to the ancestors and the people who are coming after. And through this one genre that we have created, it's the stories all coming together to culminate in this moment. And it's from a thematic standpoint, from a shooting standpoint, from a musical standpoint, it is a perfect scene all the way through. I cannot stress this enough. And it's punctuated by the fact that you have Remick, the bad guy with his 2 new vampire acolytes, looking from the outside and being mesmerized by this. Now, on the surface, it looks like he's just trying to wreck the black people's fun, right? He's going to ruin the house party. But in reality, he is mesmerized by this communion, right? He wants to be a part of this. He wants this. And you find out that his motivations is that he wants to get to Sammy so that Sammy can use his music so that he can be a part of his old community as well. Because he's obviously of Irish descent. And we'll talk about more about like how the black community, the African community or African American community and the Irish community have a lot of overlap in terms of what happened to them when it came to like colonialism, the British, and like, those overlaps there. But he is looking at this saying, this is beautiful. I want to be a part of this. Let me inside so I can join into, or at least come outside so I can have this as well. And again, it's a perfect scene. It is 100% a perfect scene. So, obviously he introduces himself to the people. They won't let him in because, white people coming into a black joint, very dangerous. Jim Crow South, we get it. But it's way more nefarious than that, because now Mary, she ends up saying that, hey, I know we're going under on money. Maybe I can like kind of persuade them to get like come in, give us some money, and then maybe we can stay afloat. Now, this is where I say the similarities between the love interests of Michael B. Jordan's 2 characters, Smoke and Stack, comes into play, because we hear very early on from Smoke that Stack doesn't know how to watch his own back. Smoke is the one that killed their father because Stack was the one who would get beat by their father. So Stack could be very like, not necessarily out to lunch, but like he can't watch his own back. And Mary, being the firecracker, very much like Stack, she goes outside, realizes that something's amiss with these people, and immediately turns her back to these characters, causing her to get killed and turned into a vampire. And that's what kind of sets off the carnage of this film, because then she in turns infects Stack. She kills Stack, who wasn't watching his own back. To be honest, Haley Steinfeld said a couple things that would have made a lot of men fold in that situation, but he ended up going out exactly how Smoke said it, right? They both did, and which is why they both end up together at the end of the film. And then it kicks off kind of like the vampire carnage of it. And then it becomes like almost, I don't want to say standard, but then this is where you get to your typical, vampire fare. Obviously, there's some great things that happen in this. There's one moment where Remick has infected like the entire community of people, and he's doing this like Irish dance, like the river dance, and you see like the collection of black vampires dancing around him. It almost gives cultural appropriation in a way, but he's still singing his own song. So he's just kind of like brought them together to sing and dance with them. And I think it's a really great scene because, again, there's a lot of similarities between what happened between the black community and the Irish community, how they were told not to worship what they worship. They were told not to speak their own language. They were denied rights to their own freedom. And Remick understands that, right? Remick understands that we are the same in these instances. We sought freedom. We had our freedom taken away. So therefore, I want to give you a chance at not only being free with me, but to dance with me, commune with me, like sing with me, and we'll literally do this forever. We'll even kill the racist Ku Klux Klan members. Like we got the same enemies. Like Ryan Coogler said himself, the dude's not racist. He just wants to be a part of the party. And so like that scene where he's like outside, you can almost say it's like a toned down version of what I call the greatest scene filmed like ever. It's like that, but it, the song slaps, it looks cool, but it doesn't have that same like oof, you know what I'm saying? Like the ancestors and the people of the future didn't come to dance with them, right? That's what he wants Sammy for. So I really, really liked Remick's altruistic motives, his reasons, his altruistic reasons of doing evil things. I thought that was like really, really cool. So as he starts to kind of like in a way psychologically torture our main characters, he starts to say like, hey, this was supposed to be a slaughterhouse. The Ku Klux Klan was not going to let you guys have this. You guys could have had it for a night. That was going to be the last time you had it. This dude is his nephew. Like he could tell you everything. And, also him infecting like Stack, and Stack basically confirming this as well. It's a really great pitch. It was a really great pitch to be like, hey, sorry guys, like this is just, you know what I'm saying? So it's just the vampirism. Like I remember Ryan Coogler told me like before I saw the movie that it's a movie with vampires in it versus a vampire movie. And I understood it once I was watching that. It's about far more than just like vampires coming in to do vampire things. This is the vampire that also holds the pain and the suffering and the weight of having a culture and a community ripped from him, his land stolen from him. He comes to the Jim Crow South and he's seeing that same thing happen. And he's in his mind not going to let this happen again, right? Like, I sympathize. And, obviously nobody wants to die and become a vampire, so there's some pushback there. But I just loved how that was handled in the film. This is where I get into like the third act where Grace can't take it. She hears that they're going to get her daughter. And so she basically invites the vampires in. Very bad idea. And this is where everything just kind of seems a little bit rushed, but there's still a little measurement to it. There's still some things that I really liked about it, especially when Sammy is escaping, because everyone knows that Sammy is the reason why he's there in the first place. And, Remick has Sammy dead to rights, and Sammy tries to pray because, he's basically in the face of the devil, and he thinks that, praying to God is going to help. And then Remick starts praying too. And he says, the men who forced themselves on us and took our land also did this to us. But I do find the words comfortable, meaning that there's a little bit of Stockholm syndrome that's happening between both of them, right? Like Remick is like, the men who introduced me to this took everything from me, and they did the same thing to you guys. Like they took away your religion, they took away your culture, they took away everything about you. They stripped you of your literal culture, yet you're using the religion of them to think that that's going to protect you from me. You know what I'm saying? He's like acknowledging that this is a weird circle that they find themselves in, but he's like, yo, it's all going to be good once I bite you and you give me your songs. Obviously, they end up prevailing. Him and Smoke are the last one standing. More interesting things happen when Sammy goes back home to his father. His father basically has the biggest I told you so look on his face. He's got like a giant scratch on his face. He's got a broken guitar, and he's all like, perfect. Just give yourself to the Lord. And Sammy says no. He says, I love this too much. And he's confirmed to be a sinner. He lives the life of still playing that music because that's what he loves to do. It's freedom for him. Playing music is free for him. So, him basically leaving that town, leaving his father, and then still pursuing that. Very, 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 very cool. Meanwhile, Smoke, he's got to take care of some Ku Klux Klan members. So, once they show up to kind of basically like wipe out everybody who's at the party, he basically says, fuck that. I was a soldier. He mows them down with the Tommy gun, which Ryan Coogler described as his big guitar solo, which I thought was really cool because on the third rewatch, I realized that Ludwig Göransson is doing a guitar solo as Michael B. Jordan is shooting down the Ku Klux Klan members. So I thought that was like a really, really cool scene. It was also a very cathartic scene because throughout the course of the movie, Annie ends up dying, his wife. We also find out, how did I miss this? Smoke also lost a child. Him and Annie had a baby, and the baby ended up dying. So the big reason why he has like a lot of like old man like mannerisms in him. He's a very hardened man, but he sees Annie, who recently died. He sees his child, and he basically, with a bullet wound himself, sits down and resigns himself to basically like living out the rest of his afterlife with them. It's a beautiful ending. And I think it's very fitting that, he dies in the sun while his brother, who stays a vampire in the mid-credit scene, is cursed to basically live the rest of his day in the night. And getting into that mid-credit scene, we get into old Sammy. He's now it's 70 years in the future. And he's basically this big jazz musician. And he comes across Mary and Stack, both vampires, both still living. But they're not trying to kill him. He promised his brother that he wouldn't kill him, let him live out the rest of his life. He offers to make him immortal again, but he basically says, nah, I'm good, man. I've seen enough of this life. And he offers one last song to Stack. Stack just wants to hear the real guitar because he hates the electric guitar. So he plays him a little song. And this is probably one of the most beautiful kind of epilogue mid-credit scenes that I've ever seen, where he says, before the sun went down that night, it was the best day of my life. Was it the same for you? And there's this beautiful moment where Stack says, without a doubt, that was the last time I saw my brother. It was the last time I saw the sun. It was perfect. And then we see this beautiful scene in 70 millimeter just taking up the whole screen. We see Smoke and Stack together, presumably before the carnage, before the big night. This is them sharing a moment before they officially open the juke joint. They're watching the sun go down, and you could just feel just this overwhelming sense of love and community between these two brothers, and this bond that they had. And I think, again, Smoke dying in the sun and his brother being cursed in the to live the rest of his days immortal in the night, but seeing the two of them watching the sun go down in that midpoint, it's very poetic, it's very cool, and it's very emotional. I've been yapping for a minute. My memory card just filled up and I had to delete some files, but luckily we're at the end. And again, it's a beautiful ending, and to an otherwise crazy, amazing, instant classic of a film. And I'm sure I'm missing some things that I want to talk about. I'll make little bite-sized shorts and reels and TikToks talking about those type of things. But yeah, no, Sinners is it's a masterpiece. I think it's a masterpiece. If you disagree, make sure you put that in the comments. If you don't disagree, make sure you put that in the comments. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, guys. I know we talked for a little bit. It's gonna be hell editing this. Luckily, I went on these long rants, but yeah, I'm really happy with this film. It's all hands down my favorite film of the year. Yeah, I'm just still in awe just thinking about it. I'm definitely going to go see it for a fourth time as soon as I get the chance. But if you like this video, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you make sure you comment, make sure you subscribe, and hit the bell to get notified for my other videos. It will definitely help me with the algorithm and help YouTube notice me at some point. Please notice me, senpai. It'll be really nice. But I'm sure I'll have Goofy Guys, your movie guy. And if you haven't made me it yet, can I be your movie guy?